Chapter 1, Getting Started in Communications. First, we need to discuss what communication is. The book states that the communication is a transactional process. That means that it is currently moving, is ongoing, it is a flow back and forth. It occurs in a context. It does not happen in a vacuum. It happens in a time frame within a certain set of parameters around it. What happened before it, what happened after it, all of that is part of what happens in the context. It involves the negotiated meanings of symbols, which means as we're speaking, as we're talking, as we're communicating, we are discussing back and forth, and we're trying to figure out what each other is trying to say. It also understands and involves a shared understanding, which means we both will somewhat understand what's being said. Now, I would like to back up here for a second, and when we talk about communication, as far as what the book and through these lectures will be, is we're referring to effective communication. There is such a thing as ineffective or communication in which I talk and nobody hears or listens, like most of my lectures. Anyway, the point is that communication is effective communication. That's what we're referring to. The next slide is a little out of order, but as we mentioned earlier, talking about negotiating symbols and shared understanding, I feel that it's necessary that you understand the terminology before we worry about covering the type of models. So, first, let's look at what we are. You are either a sender or receiver. You're the transmitter or receiver. You are the one that's sending the message, the one that's receiving the message. Sometimes you're both. Then you have the message. This is that fluid thought that's in your head. This is that wondering what you're trying to say. This is that notion that you're going to figure out. Then you have encoding and decoding. This is the whole getting it from your head and out to whoever you're talking to or speaking to or sending to or whatever, however you're communicating. But it is the conversion of the thought to some kind of message. Then you have the frame of reference. Frame of reference is your standpoint. It is what you're seeing today, your attitude for the day, your knowledge of everything leading up to that point. It is how you perceive things, all of that. Everything is your frame of reference. And we have the code. This is what we're discussing back there. The code is the message itself converted into some kind of hard thing, whether it's a language, whether it's tonal inflection, whether it's nonverbal communication skills, anything, whether all of that can be the code. That is what you're actually trying to say, converted into something that can be transmitted, interpreted by somebody else. The next is the channel. That is the conduit in which we are using to transmit information. It could be face-to-face talking, code being the language, the channel being face-to-face with audio, direct audio transfer. It could be like this, where it's a recorded video or a PowerPoint presentation with audio. It could be telephone conversation. It could be a text message. It could be an email. It could be virtually any smoke signals. What you choose for the channel affects a lot. Of course, your code is affected by the channel. You have feedback. What feedback is? Just what it sounds like. I send a message, you provide feedback. I send you an email, you respond to that email. That's feedback. I make a comment, you roll your eyes. Obviously, I know that joke didn't land very well. That's feedback. As we said earlier, it's a context. Context is pretty much everything surrounding the communication model that's going on. Context is, what time is it? What time of year? What time of day? Context is, what is each other's attitudes at the time? What is the background noise? What is the ambient noise level? If it's a really loud room and you're trying to yell, and then later somebody says, well, he was yelling at me. Well, yeah, in context, I had to yell just to get you to be heard. So context is pretty much everything surrounding what's going on in the situation at the time. Then we have noise. Noise can be pretty much anything. It can be the fact that you are hard of hearing. It could be the fact that you have poor vision and you don't interpret the vocal visual cues. It could be a physical ambient noise outside. It could be just literally noise being brought across. It could be that your thought process is something somewhere else and you're not necessarily paying attention. That's noise. All of these are situations of noise. Noise is just kind of that lump sum, anything that kind of gets in the way of communicating. We have three basic models. We have the action model, the interaction model, and the transaction model. First one, the action model. This is where you have the sender, takes the message, encodes the message, buried in the code in blue there, sends the message through the channel to the receiver, in which case the receiver decodes it. There's noise all along the message. There's noise when you're encoding. There's noise when you're decoding, and of course everything along the way. This is a very linear process. It's one directional. It's me sending you something. It's what I'm doing right now. I'm sending you this with nothing in return. I don't know how this is being heard, interpreted, so I really don't have any way of adjusting whether you can hear me, whether you can understand me, whether I'm talking too fast, not talking fast enough. All of that's irrelevant because I don't know. That's an action model. Next is the interaction model. Think of this like an email message or a text message. I have the noise going on. I create the message here. I encode the message. I send it through the channel. It's, of course, got noise and whatever happens. And then it gets to the next person. It gets to person B. Person B here decodes it, replies, encodes that reply, sends the reply back, and it comes back to me. Person A, I decode that, I do that, I reply, and my next message goes around and around and around. This is like an email or, like I said, text message conversation back and forth. It is message goes one direction and then comes back another. Quite similar to a walkie-talkie. Walkie-talkie, you key the mic, you can send your message, but nobody else can send back while you're doing that, so you don't get constant feedback. As soon as you let go, then that person has a chance to encode and send a message back, and they key the mic, and you can't talk to them while they're doing this. This is the interaction model. This, you see a little bit, like I said, email messages, things like that, but generally most conversations are more in the next realm, which is the transactional model. This is where you have person A and person B having a conversation. We have noise all around us. We have context. We have constant message and feedback. As I said, I make a statement. You boil up. I can see your face turn red. I obviously made you mad. That's immediate feedback. I can adjust my message accordingly, so I'm able to adjust. That is going on. That's that transactional. We are transacting back and forth. The conversation, the communication, and everything is moving back and forth in such a way as to allow for us to hear what's needed to be said. We can make that. You see how we've got our frame of references shown on here. That little overlapping frame of reference, that's where effective communication actually happens. So this is more real world. Even television shows now, anything that's live broadcast, what used to be that action model where we send it out, there might even be some interaction model with that sent back. They're actually more of a transactional model now, because with social media out there, we can got live, you can tweet with the news guy while they're talking, so all that stuff's going on. So that is the transaction model. Those are the three basic models. This looks like a good place to break it. I will pick up the next one in the next segment. Thank you for listening.